And there's more books. Okay, now real quick, I'm just going to go through a quick overview through pictures of a typical alien abduction experience. And these are all by different artists and different experiencers. But let's start with this. First, you may be at home, most typically, not always. Sometimes you're driving a car, you're out in other places. I've had it happen while traveling. But anyways, in this particular case, the abductee is at home. An alien pops through the wall, through, just boom, comes like through a seam in the wall, and the other ones are appearing in her closet. Then you may have an alien in your environment. Often they're referred to as the grays. Other types are seen. There's a variety of types seen, but for the simplicity of this presentation, that is what a typical gray looks like, and that's actually from my experience. And this is another one from my particular experience, but then you may have where the aliens then do something to you in your environment. They may not necessarily take you somewhere. So in this case, I'm in bed, and they're doing something to me while I'm in bed, in my room.
What is that, swinging? It says swinging over the bed?
Swirling cloud. That's a swirling cloud above me. That's what I first saw. And then the aliens materialized in the room. It's happened different ways, but in this particular one, that's how that happened. And then, if you are taken somewhere, often in this case, and this again is another one of my experiences, but this is typical to other people, so I'm just giving it as a typical example, is I'm driving on the highway with two male friends. We're on our way somewhere. We're on a mountain road. Our car is stopped. We pull over to the side of the road. There's an alien standing in the road. There's a ship off to the side, and we are escorted onto the ship. So in this case, we walk out of, well, actually, we're floated out of the car, but then we walk onto the ship. Don't ask. I don't. That's all. That's what we remember. And we each three independently remembered this consciously, and the three of us got regression separately from each other, and more details came out than what we'd remembered consciously, and everything matched. And of course, the regressions happened independently, and it took the researcher to say, you guys are all telling the same story, because otherwise we didn't know if we were. And then you might see the inside of a ship. As you can see, this was November 28th, 1990, from the date at the top. I guess I don't need that mic, I keep forgetting. And this is a curved hallway on a ship, and some letters that appeared on a screen, some kind of interesting, strange writing I was watching. Anyways, typical. This is typical. And then, so after you see the ship, you might be shown some hybrid babies. Okay. And then you might see some other stranger hybrids or other stranger creatures, like this is reptilians. And then you might be asked to hold a hybrid child. And then you might be shown an older hybrid and presented to you as yours, or you might see hybrid children playing together. All these are very, very typical in the experience. And so that's a typical experience. And then, of course, women have eggs taken, men have sperm taken. Often you're shown technical information, have side testing kind of stuff done, shown Earth catastrophe stuff. These are all very typical scenarios. But then after the experience, you have some memory, maybe a dream, a period of missing time. For instance, when I was driving with those guys, we had about 2.5 hours of seamless missing time. It's a drive we've made many times. The whole drive only takes about an hour, and it took over 3 hours that day, and there was no way that a drive we've made many times in an hour can take suddenly 3 hours. We had no traffic. It was the middle of the night. So it was like, what happened? And so that was one of our first indicators that we had had something happen, plus we had marks on our body, various other things. Physical things we were immediately feeling after the experience that told us something had happened, because we were going through very strange physical stuff. But here's, this is actually my elbow. This is 48 hours after an experience where I had 2 puncture holes on my elbow. This is, sure. You can't see it real clearly, but you can see there's 2 little red marks, and this was taken 48 hours, but the next morning I saw this, and how I saw this is I was in my kitchen, and I noticed I had blood on my elbow, and I wiped it off and noticed there were 2 puncture holes that were bleeding just a little bit. So it was still bleeding. Now, often you have healed scars, like scoop marks that literally appear overnight that are healed, but in this case, this wasn't healed. And I should repeat these questions, I'm sorry, but he's saying in the regression, did I cause what did I find out what caused this? Yes. If you go out to my table, I have a binder of pictures. Most of these are in there and some others. There's an instrument in there of this handheld instrument with 2 needles, long thing coming out and 2 needles. That instrument, I believe, may have done this. But anyway, so moving right along. This is from someone else's. I don't know if you can see, again, I have a better picture of this in that binder. But going up, the bottom picture is a leg, obviously from the ankle to the knee. And this person, perfectly spaced about every inch or two, perfectly spaced, has little red dots. And I used to think these were needle marks, but I've heard recently from someone who knew this person that these were actually burn marks, little tiny burn marks evenly spaced going up the leg. And then these are like a burn mark on the back of someone's neck. So what I'm saying is the next morning after the experience, you find these marks, and maybe you have the missing time if you were driving or somewhere else. You have marks on you. These are things where you start to piece together that something had happened. This is interesting, too. This abductee thought she'd had an experience. The next day, or the next morning, actually, she's out in her living room, and she admits she'd been a bad housekeeper, had not been dusting regularly, and her television screen had gotten very, very dusty. She remembered in the experience, she remembered being in her living room, and the aliens having her, they took her out of the bedroom and into the living room. She was in the living room with them, and she remembers, and I think she'd maybe fallen asleep with the TV on, if I remember correctly. She remembers the alien touching the television screen, like it was interested in it or something. It was touching it. And she remembered that. The next day, when she got up and was remembering all this, she said, and she thought to look at her TV screen, because she remembered that the alien had touched it. And luckily, it was, well, in this case, luckily it was really dirty, because she claims that these marks were from the alien touching the screen. That it, so you have like ... and some swept things, and that